Part 27. Madam, She Has a Tender Heart. Author, B.H. Yaoye 11U. Chapter 263. Dr. Mu's family settled in the market town. Soon, the news spread that a doctor from outside the mountain came to treat everyone. Throughout the mountains, more and more people were pouring towards the market town. Outside Huayan Hall, there was a long queue of people waiting for medical treatment. Dr. Mu's reputation skyrocketed. Walking into the market town, everyone knew him. The village owners came over one after another to make friends. His family's uneasiness about living in the mountains was swept away, and they settled down in the mountains with peace of mind. Seeing that Suking Neo had people build a small courtyard for them, the old lady took her 2 grandchildren to help every day. He felt even more reassured when he saw that Ma Xian and 50 people were living not far from his house. Seeing that they were still growing their own grain and land, the old lady, who had never farmed in her life, also made a request to Suking Neo and wanted to open a piece of land to grow something herself. That must be satisfied. It's just a doctor, I'm so precious, it's not a particularly difficult request. Arrangements were made immediately. Without Suking's orders, a group of people came over spontaneously and leveled a large piece of land behind Dr. Mu's courtyard. It gave Dr. Mu's family a sense of belonging. My wandering heart dropped. The market town is slowly getting on the right track. Because goods are being collected every day, there are still many people coming from various places, and there are still many people in the market town every day. The 60 mobile stalls there were fully occupied every day in the first few days after they opened. Each one charges 5 cents, and he can also collect 300 cents in rental money a day. It seems that just renting is enough for the hard-earned money of each village owner. The plaque of Huayan Hall has been hung up. On one side is Ling Fenggu's medicine cabinet and on the other is Dr. Mu's clinic. The two perform their respective duties and work together in perfect harmony. The two families have become very close to each other. They both have 2 grandsons of similar age, Ling Nangxing and Mu Kongqing. One follows his grandfather to help on the medicine cabinet, and the other follows his grandfather to see patients and take pulse records. The two families get along extremely well. Sukingyu felt relieved when Huayantang was handed over to them. Looking at her shop, Xiang Zhen led people to sell and receive goods, and they were also well organized. Si Yuan came back, and Xiang Shang naturally came back too. I heard that the two of them brought back many people. Sukingyu decided to go to Xinjianzai to have a look. I also took a look at the various sauces made by Guo and others. Sukingliu and Lu Ruyi had never been to Xinjianzai, so they wanted to follow them as soon as they heard about it. Xiaobao and Yaya didn't have enough fun in the market town, but if mother wanted to leave, she would naturally follow her. Sukingyu explained to the village leader on duty and took everyone to the Xinjian village. In the stockade, her courtyard has been built, and she is just waiting for the furniture to be ready before she can move in. The village gate and defense fortifications are still under construction. Xiang Shang and Si Yuan got more than 600 taels of silver from selling medicinal materials this time. After buying people, everything needed for the village, and grain for Ma Xian, there was not much left. Sukingliu looked at Xinjianzai, pulled Sukingyu and said she wanted to live here. They felt in their hearts that this was their own village. Well, I'll be able to live here in a while. Xiang Shang brought back more than 30 men this time, and almost all of them had family members following him. The number of people in Xinjianzai suddenly exceeded 100. It seems that the housing construction project in Xinjianzai will continue. But next she wants to plant tea trees and ash trees, so I'm afraid there will be no shortage of people. Suking Neo looked at the personnel files and met these people again, so she left Xiang Shang and Wei Fucang in charge, and she didn't ask any more questions. Went straight to the kitchen. Spring has begun, and there are many fungi and wild animals in the mountains. After thawing, the wild animals might not be able to survive, So Sukingyu collected some fresh mushrooms and wild animals, and told Mrs. Guo that she wanted to make some mushroom meat sauce, which could be sold or eaten at home. Guo got the idea from Sukingyu, took the people back and tried it. What she didn't expect was that when the receipt sign was put up, mountain people would pick it up from everywhere and sell it every day. So when I went to the kitchen, I saw a big pot filled with the aroma of meat, sauce, and mushrooms. It was so fragrant that my mouth watered. There are several jars already stored in the warehouse. When do you think they will be sold, boss? When Mrs. Guo saw Sukingyu trying it, she couldn't help but nodded. She felt relieved and asked. In a few days, Xiang Shang opens the inner shop in Renzhou City, and he will take it out to sell. He will sell it in the city first, and then he will not sell it in the market town. Yes. After only 2 days in Xinjianzai, Manager Li came to find her. Accompanied by her, we walked around Xinjianzai. You still have to have your own territory and manpower, otherwise you have to do things for others all the time. Sukingyu glanced at him. Are you talking about you or me? He raised an eyebrow. Why don't you do it yourself? If I do the caravan at home by myself, my father will break my legs. Your caravan, this was the first time Sukingyu heard about it. Aren't they all called young master? What's the name of Manager Li? She thought he was one of the many managers. If others in the young master's family have concerns, ask Manager Li to make things easier. Sukingyu curled her lips and said, oh, it's a fake identity to deceive others and lie to her. Ordinary people don't understand the twists and turns of the rich. Why come here again? There's money to be made. Are you trying to steal business from me again? Sukingyu glared at him. Manager Li smiled at her and handed her an envelope. Sukingyu glanced at him suspiciously and took it. When she opened it, she saw that it was the 2 hills with her name on it, or the 2 hills next to her Xinjianzai. Look at him. He raised the mountain deed in his hand. Some doubts. The compensation given to you by Mr. Pei and your godfather. Sukingyu paused and understood instantly. You want to collect medicinal materials. Manager Li glanced at her, but he didn't say anything. Just understand. Let's just say that the woman in front of me is not simple. It seems that she is a woman raised by a merchant family like theirs. Very keen on business opportunities. He nodded. I didn't expect this batch of medicinal materials before, mainly because you gave me too many surprises. You made a lot of money, right? More than in previous years. Cut. Sukingyu looked at the 2 mountain deeds in her hand. She knew about the 2 mountains next door, but there are people living up there. There is no stronghold. If there are people, you can stay if you like, and move away if you don't. They live well, why did they move away? Then if you build a new stockade above, it won't affect them. Maybe they will be more willing. She didn't know whether she was willing or not. All she knew was that she couldn't do the medicine business. She only collected medicinal herbs twice and sold them, and got 1,000 taels. This is a piece of fat meat. Exchange 2 mountain deeds. Have you given benefits to my godfather and Lord Pei? Of course, 10% each. Otherwise, Mr. Pei would not be willing to give up this fat to me. But you snatched my meat from my bowl. I know. Sukingyu stared at him. Is it so calm? I will be at your disposal from now on. Selling yourself. Manager Li laughed out loud, then when he saw Sukingyu glaring at him fiercely, he laughed again until tears came out of his eyes. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 264. After Manager Li left, Sukingyu asked Xiang Shang to take people to the 2 mountains to check the situation. A few days later, Xiang Shang came back. It is said that there are about 10 families in the 2 mountains, living in scattered places, and they have all lived there for more than 10 years. I didn't join any other villages, I just lived on those two mountains. I heard that both mountains have become private and belong to the female president of Jianji town. Immediately expressed his willingness to join Xinjiang. They also went to market towns to sell things, and the ones in the 29 villages only charged half the price, while renting stalls in other villages cost double the price. Moreover, people have built terraced fields and planted grain, but they have no one to take care of them. There are few people, nothing can be done, not even a gate. Moreover, only the people in the joint village are protected, while the people in the outer village have no one to care about them. Many are willing to join Xinjiang. King Nao had people go over and register them, but he didn't let them move and they still lived there. When things are planted in the mountains, someone will have to take care of them. King called Tong and her daughter over again and asked her about the situation of white wax insect breeding. After learning that the situation was good, they asked them to go to two new mountains to check the status of ash trees and ash insects. After acquiring two mountains, King Mu arranged for people to plant tea trees and ash trees on the mountains. After another 2 days of busy work, someone came to Beijiazai. It was said that Guanxi Li's caravan brought her parents and family. King Yu thought she heard wrongly at first, but when she heard that the caravan was coming from Chenzhou, she brought her parents and younger siblings. Overjoyed, King Liu was already crying. The two sisters supported each other and immediately ran in the direction of Beijiazai. I can't even care about the children. He was hugged by Lu, Ruyi, and others and followed behind. In Beijia village, Su's father, Su's mother, Qing, and Yang Qingxing followed Guanxi Li's caravan for more than a month before arriving in Renzhou. After entering the mountain and finally climbing up, the two sisters were not there. Holding a heart, they were taken to the small courtyard where the sisters lived. Seeing this, I felt relieved and immediately felt like home. After being warmly received by the villagers of Beijiazai, I felt relieved again and started chatting enthusiastically with the villagers. Not long after, King Nao and King Liu arrived. Father, mother. Green apricots and green poplars. Son. Eldest sister, second sister. The family held their heads and cried. Although we all know that everyone is still alive through letters before, we haven't seen each other yet, so we don't know how the other person is doing. We are all thinking about and caring about each other. Looking at the dusty people, King Yu couldn't hold back her tears. Fortunately, they were all fine, otherwise, she wouldn't know how to feel guilty. Sister, I miss you so much. Qingxing hugged King Yu and wouldn't let go. King Yu touched her head and choked with sobs. Sister, I miss you too. Qingyang felt that she had grown up, so she didn't hug her and snuggled next to King Yu. Sister, I have read all the books you sent me. Okay, be good. King Yu also hugged him over. King Yu looked at this and that, remembering when she first met them, they were small, only 6 years old, only reaching her waist, and they were thin and small. He will be 9 years old in a blink of an eye. Xiaobao, Yaya, come to Grandpa and Grandma. Yaya took Xiaobao and walked over. Grandpa and Grandma. Yaya still remembers them, but Xiaobao can no longer remember them. But when my sister screamed, she also followed her. After calling, look at this, look at that, and then look at mother. Su's father and Su's mother held on to their two children. Touched and touched. I heard that Yaya suffered a lot on the road with King Liu. Your father and I couldn't sleep every night. But now it seems that Yaya has grown a lot taller than last year. King Liu laughed, there is no shortage of meat here for my sister. She eats enough every day, runs and jumps with the children in the village, and she has grown a lot taller. Xiaobao is also tall. He didn't hear anyone say anything about him, so he immediately stood on tiptoes and gestured. Not willing to be outdone. Yes, our little treasure has grown taller too. It's great, and he can speak fluently. With tears in her eyes, Mother Su held him tightly in her arms. The whole family couldn't help but wipe away their tears. Mom and Dad, please sit in the house. Su Qingyu greeted and thanked the villagers who helped greet them. Mrs. Lu and her daughter also saw each other, so they turned around and went to the kitchen to prepare meals. After they left, the family sat in the flower hall and talked. Father Su and Mother Su looked at their two daughters and saw that their two grandchildren were fine, and wiped away tears again. Brother and sister-in-law are letting you go, Su Qingyu asked them. Your brother was reluctant to let us go. He cried so much that his eyes were swollen. He sent us all the way to the next county. I don't know when I will see your brother again. Although I am happy to see my daughter and grandson, I also miss my eldest son. Su Qingyu was silent in her heart. Who doesn't want to reunite the whole family? He comforted, Mom and Dad, you can correspond with your brother in the future. When the world is stable, the family will be reunited. Yes, yes. That's what I told your mother. Besides, your mother and I were at your brother's place. We had nothing to do, so we just stayed in the courtyard, staring at each other. Our grandson was also taken care of. I was so dumb. Soft. Sister-in-law hired 2 wet nurses to take care of her nephew, and she said she couldn't take care of her nephew. Ching Xing said quickly. Seeing Su's mother glaring at her, she hurriedly hid behind Su Qingyu. Su Qingsong married his own wife and lived with her for the rest of his life. No one wanted to say anything else. Xiaobao, call me aunt, you haven't called me yet. Ching Xing teased Xiaobao. I obviously saw him being born, only a little bit old, and now he can run and jump. Qingyang also came over. Xiaobao, call me uncle. Xiaobao, this is aunt, and this is uncle. Yaya held his hand and taught him word by word. Auntie, uncle. Hey, Xiaobao can speak fluently. Come, let me hold you. I want to hug you too. The two of them fought for a hug. Xiaobao looked at this and that, not knowing who to hold him. Made everyone laugh. Xiaobao and Yaya took aunt and uncle to have a look in our yard and then look at the big pot in the backyard. There were 8 large tea-making pots in the backyard. Manager Li ordered them to be removed, but they are still there. It's a pity that there are no peanuts, otherwise Su Qingyu would want to use them to fry peanuts. It would be a pity to leave such a big pot unused. How about drying some rice, frying some rice crackers, and making sweet cakes? This can happen. A lot of grain will be harvested in autumn, and she can eat it without fear of going hungry. When Xiaobao heard this, he happily took his aunt and uncle to the backyard to see the big pot. What a big pot! Xiaobao made famous gestures with his little hands. It's so big, it can fit Xiaobao and me. Yaya followed suit. After the children went out, the 2 sisters talked to Father Su and Mother Su about what happened during their absence. Chatting about their lives. That Wei Fu came, Su's father and Su's mother were shocked. Why did they come here? Are they going to have a son-in-law? Su Qingli looked at Su Qingyu. Seeing everyone looking at her, Su Qingyu said, I have been observing for a long time and heard everyone say that he has a good character in his conduct. He protected his sister and Yaya along the way, and they were able to share the difficulties together. He is the benefactor of my sister and Yaya. There is no one in his family and he is the only one left. Since he is willing to stay in this mountain and marry his sister, we can consider it. Let my sister live with him for a while. It just so happens that my parents are here, so we can check it out. If someone is willing to form a family with my sister, my parents, and I can rest assured. Su Qingli lowered his head upon hearing this. She hasn't thought about it yet. Su Qingjao glanced at her and said, there's no rush anyway, let's take a look. My parents usually help me take a look. Okay, let's take a look again. Don't be in a hurry, marriage is a big deal and you can't just take it lightly. Su's father opened his mouth to set the tone. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoya 11U. Chapter 265. Within a few days, Sue's father and Sue's mother felt comfortable, and quickly adapted to the situation. Read. Sister, I like this place so much. Qing Xing ran towards her. Qing Yang followed. Where's Qing Yang, do you like it? Qing Yang raised the corners of his mouth and nodded, yes, I like it. Mother Su also came over. Your dad and I like it too. Your dad was looking for a hoe just now and wanted to go up the mountain to plant trees. He walked around the village and looked at the rice seedlings on the terraces, smiling happily, as if it's the same as his family. He also said that if we came earlier, he could follow us to plant rice. Su Kinjao couldn't help but laugh. Mother Su asked again, Qing now, we have to move. Mom thinks this village is quite good. There are mountains and mountains, food, and the villagers are also enthusiastic. People come to chat with her every day. Compared with the days of being locked up in Chencheng City, and compared with the days in Kyoto Village, I was happier. It's convenient to live there. It's also close to the market town, so it's easy to manage. There are still 2 mountains where we need to plant tea trees and ash trees, and we also need to order people to do things. Then let's pack up and move. Sue's father came over and said. He couldn't wait to hear that things would be planted in the mountains. Su Qingyu thought for a while, okay, let's pack it up first, and then slowly buy the missing things over there. On the day Su Qingyu moved, the owner of Zongjai rushed back from the market town. Pulling her along, Qing, do you really want to move? Can you not move? The Zongjai leader was very reluctant to part with her. Su Qingyu lived in Beijiazai for more than half a year and was very reluctant to leave. You can come and see me. I'll leave a room for you over there. When Chiuer gets married, you can live there. You can also come and have hot pot with my parents in the winter. The people from Beijiazai dragged Su Qingyu away. I helped move things and gave their family a lot of things. It was a long way to send her family all the way. It made Sue's father and Sue's mother not want to leave. The villagers are so enthusiastic. These days, the 2 of them have become familiar with the villagers. People from Xinjianzai and Beijiazai helped with the move, and it took just 1 day to get the house settled. Like the courtyard in Beijiazai, it has a front yard, a backyard, and left and right side rooms, but the place is larger than that one, with 1 more entrance. A meeting hall was also left out. Furniture and other things are also ready. Once the family moved here, they were settled in place. That night, a large stove was set up in an open space in the village, and everyone in the village had a meal together. Sue's father and Sue's mother were very happy. They kept chatting with others, talking about the crops in the fields and their escape all the way, which resonated with everyone. It's all a past that is unbearable to look back on. Fortunately, everything is safe now. That night, the whole family slept soundly, and there was nothing uncomfortable. The next day, Sue's father got up early in the morning and followed Wei Fu came to plant trees on the hill next door. They looked like father-in-law and son-in-law. Mother Su also took her 2 grandsons to help Guo make sauce, and fed her 2 grandsons well before returning. There are not that many children in Xinjianzai, but Xiaobao and Yaya have fun for themselves. Follow grandma every day, like a little tail, following her wherever she goes. Grandma is happy, and so is her grandson. Someone took care of them, so Su Qingnao and Su Qingliu didn't have to worry a lot. Only 2 days after settling in, the village owners sent a message asking her to go to the market town. Su Qingyu took Si Yuan to the market town. When we arrived at the small office building, we found that in addition to the 4 village masters on duty, there were several other village masters. There were also 6 or 7 strange men. The president is here. The men stood up. President, he also called the president. Sit down, who are you? After asking, he looked at the village leaders. The leader of Hisong village said, I brought them here. They are not far from our village, just separated by a big mountain. I heard that there is an alliance village here and I want to join. Sukingyu asked about the name of their village. We don't have a village name. No village name? Sukingyu thought of the villages she marked on the map. The mountain next door to Hisonzai? Then you are all out of Renzo. If you go a little further west, you will reach Zizhu. We don't know which boundary it is. We have been living in the mountains for almost 10 years. What do you think? We heard that there is a market town in the mountains, and we also want to come. We have no restrictions on people from outside the Alliance village. Everyone is free to buy and sell. A man looked at the leader of Hisong village. The leader of Hisong village said, they want to move out. Move out? Where do you want to move? Sukingyu didn't understand their intentions. A man said, actually, we are closer to Zizhu than here. But we usually don't dare to go to Zizhu because it is a mess. We can't even buy a pound of salt in Zizhu with the money we collect from several families, and we still have to pay for it on the way robbed. It was so miserable, several village owners tooted, it was better for them. They can all afford salt and will not be robbed. 7 men had sad eyes. We want to move to the market town. I just saw it in the market town. There is also salt for sale here. It's much cheaper for us to buy it. I heard from the owner of Hisong village that they all have letters, if you are willing accept us and we can also write submissions. Yes, we can all write letters. I heard that your alliance village has open terraced fields, so you can grow food in the mountains. We also want to follow you in growing food. We don't want to go hungry. We don't even dare to grow vegetables in front of and behind our houses. Bandits often visit us. Haven't you lived here for 10 years, bandits often visit, and you can still live there for 10 years? We often change places. Sometimes we live in this cave for a year and a half, and sometimes we live in a cave on another mountain for a year and a half. We want to settle down. We grow our own food, and we also want to live in Yuzai. There is a guard at the gate. Sukingyu looked at these people and thought about it. These 29 villages are vast and sparsely populated, so there is no problem in adding more people. The question is, are these people trustworthy? The men were a little anxious when they saw that Sukingyu was silent. If the president agrees to let us live in your village, I will tell you a news. What's the news? A village leader asked. We only told one person, the president. Sukingyu followed one of the men out of the room. The man looked at her, moved his mouth, and finally said, there is an iron ore in a mountain next to us. Sukingyu was shocked, are you sure? Do you recognize him? Sure. My dad recognizes him. He was an apprentice in the blacksmith shop. We haven't told anyone. If someone finds out, our area will not be safe. So we don't want to live there. We hate moving around. Do all 6 of your families know each other? Actually, there are 3 families with 3 surnames, and the younger generation is divided into 6 households. We all live in a big mountain. The ancestors of the 3 families went to the mountain together. He also described to Sukingyu the causes and consequences of the discovery of iron ore. Sukingyu was silent after hearing this. Seeing that Sukingyu didn't express his position, the man said anxiously, Mr. President, we are all good people. Our ancestors were all farmers in the north. It is really helpless to escape into the mountains. We just want to live a stable life. If the president wants to write a letter of surrender, we can make any kind of contract. Sukingyu comforted him, okay, I understand. I'll discuss it with the other village owners. After the men left, Sukingyu discussed the matter with several village owners. Are there many mountain people like this who come to seek refuge? Quite a lot. So we called the president over to discuss this matter. What do you mean? Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 266. Several village owners looked at each other. Read. We listen to the president. Yes, yes, listen to the president. The owner of Hisong village was not far from those families. He sympathized with their plight and spoke for them. Think about our past. Last summer, many people died in each of our villages. In some of our villages, young women were almost dead. If we hadn't met the president, who called Mr. Ma, we would have died. It's the same as them now. Today I am on this mountain, and tomorrow I may be on another mountain. Yeah, when I think about what happened last summer, I really can't even think about it now. Will your village organize the first anniversary celebration? Let's do it. Then our whole village will burn paper for them. The building was a little crooked, but Sukingyu did not interrupt them and listened to them quietly. He waited until they finished discussing and then said, "Then you agree to accept them?" "We will agree if the president agrees." Sukingyu thought for a while and said, "Let's do this. I will return these 6 families to our Xinjianzai and observe them closely. If anyone comes to your village in the future, you can do it on your own based on their character. Decide. But you need to report to the alliance and set a 3-year period. After the 3-year period, you can officially become a member of your village. If something goes wrong and attracts outsiders, then I won't take you to any village to play with." "That's right, I won't play with them anymore." Sukingyu couldn't help but laugh. Yes, that's it. If something happens to any village because it attracts people to be careless, then the entire village will be eliminated from the alliance village. Okay, this is good. Everyone should be more cautious in the future. Many village leaders are not here this time. The village master on duty this time will convey this matter to the village masters who will be on duty next time, and pass it on. The next time we have a meeting, we will convey it again. Yes, several village owners on duty responded. After everyone dispersed, Sukingyu found the men and told them their decision. "Thank you, President, thank you, President. Are you asking us to join the President's village?" Sukingyu nodded. "That's great." Several men looked excited. "I originally thought that they would be placed in Hisong village nearby, but I didn't expect that they would be placed in the President's village so close to the market town." They had just seen in the market town that there were troops on duty. Living here, they go hunting, and the elderly and children feel at ease at home alone. You go back and move first. Then come to me in the market town and I will take you to settle in. Thank you, President, thank you, President. Several men left with great gratitude. "Miss, do you want to settle them in Xinjianzai?" Si Yuan asked. Recorded to Xinjianzai. "But I don't live in Xinjianzai, I live on the 2 mountains in Xinjiao. When they come next time, you will take them to settle down, and then transfer people from Xinjianzai to help them build houses." "Yes." Si Yuan thought for a while and then asked, "Miss, is the news they just told true? What do you think?" Si Yuan looked at each other and said, "I don't think it's fake." Sukingyu nodded, "I don't think so either. They will live here in the future and there is no way they can deceive us with false news." He added, "You have to see it to know whether it is true or false." The 2 of them were surprised. "Miss, you want to go see it?" Sukingyu nodded, "They will come in a few days. Let's follow the father who discovered the iron ore to have a look." This. The 2 looked at each other. But seeing that Sukingyu had made up her mind, she agreed, "Okay." Sukingyu turned around and went to find Ma Xian. He said to him, "Please pay attention in the past few days. Pay more attention to people with suspicious faces. and if many people appear together, pay special attention to them. Don't worry. I've arranged for people to patrol the door non-stop around the clock. Ma Xian felt that guarding a small market town was not a big problem. Su Qingyu thought for a while and told Ma Xian the news she had just received. Seriously, Ma Xian was excited. Su Qingyu nodded. After hearing this, Ma Xian spun around on the spot, walking back and forth with a solemn expression. Uncle Xian, do you think my godfather needs him? Ma Xian nodded. Your godfather is in great need. He is short of people, money, and weapons. If you have iron, you can save some money and get more weapons. Su Qingyu thought for a while and couldn't help but ask, how far does Uncle Xian think my godfather wants to go? Ma Xian paused and looked at her. How far do you want your godfather to go? Su Qingyu was stunned for a moment. Why did she ask the question again? Shaked his head. I don't know. I just want to live a peaceful and stable life. I have money to spend, food to eat, and the freedom to go out, that's all. Ma Xian didn't speak for a long time. Your godbrothers are gone after a long time, he said this again leisurely. She knows. But what about the question she asked just now? Suddenly he was stunned. You mean there is no one behind my godfather? Ma Xian did not answer directly, only said, your godfather has never had great ambitions. Like you, he just wants to live a peaceful and stable life with your godmother and your brothers. Su Qingyu was silent, feeling a little heavy. Then I heard Ma Xian say, your godfather has hatred in his heart. Su Qingyu's eyes suddenly felt a little sour. He has hatred and resentment in his heart. If there is a clear master in the future, he may go into seclusion, or he may go to your godmother and several brothers. But now, that person is still in that position, and your godfather can't stop. If he can't stop, either someone else will die, or he will die. After hearing this, Su Qingyu stood up. Those families will move here in a few days. Uncle Xian, please come with me. Let's go see if there are any mines in the mountains, and then send a message to my godfather. Ma Xian held back his tears, smiled at her and nodded, okay. When Su Qingyu left, Ma Xian had to send him a long way. A few days later, the 6 families came with their luggage on their backs. Su Qingyu asked Xi Yuan to take them to settle down, and asked people from Xinjiang to help send some food there. Su's father originally planted an ash tree on that mountain. He heard that the ash tree would be able to obtain white wax in the future, which was the kind of candle he saw at his daughter-in-law's house. Father Su was so excited that he would walk up the mountain with a hoe every day before dawn. Full of energy. I went to plant the ash trees with the strong laborers from Xinjiang, and I was particularly active. Now I heard that several families had come, and when I heard that it was his daughter who took them in personally, she enthusiastically helped them settle in, and talked with them about their daily routines to appease their emotions. The 6 families immediately put aside their worries and settled in the mountains. The next day after settling in, the man named Zhengbo came over with his father, Lao Zhengtu. Su Qingyu has also made arrangements with Su's father, Su's mother, and others, as well as with several village owners on duty in the market town, that she will be out for a while. Then he packed his bags, took Xi Yuan, and together with Ma Xian's 5 experts, the group headed for the mountain where the iron ore was discovered. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhao 11U. Chapter 267. Quanzhou. Read. Wang Hu besieged Quanzhou for hundreds of days but could not conquer it. The Japanese captured thousands of people. As a result, the righteous men who originally wanted to defect to Wang Hu abandoned him. Many sergeants in the army also fled. As a result, the morale of the Qi army was shattered. Emperor Shuo seized the opportunity and activated Mukong and Kui Sheng to march towards Quanzhou together with soldiers and horses from Su, Bian, Su, Yan, and other states. Mukong first defeated Shang Rang's army stationed in the north of Quanzhou, and then Kui Sheng also led his team to defeat Huang Ye's army stationed in the west of Quanzhou. This broke the two big holes for Wang Hu to besiege Quanzhou. The battle lasted for half a month, and the battle was fierce. The two armies of Shuo dynasty wanted to have a life-or-death battle with Wang Hu. As a result, Wang Hu finally had to withdraw his troops from around Quanzhou in the face of the fierce Shuo army. This time, he seemed to be giving in. Withdrawing all the way, they were chased by Mukong and Kui Sheng all the way to Guiyangli in the north of Quanzhou. Unexpectedly, before he could take a breath, he was hit by heavy rain for days. God didn't help him. I wonder if it's because he ate too many people. It caused heavy rain to pour down on him every day. The water on the flat ground was 3 feet deep, causing his military camp to float. Smoking with rage. The army had no food, so they evacuated Quanzhou. They finally set up camp, but it rained heavily again. The tents were like water houses, and the army could not rest well. I also heard that two armies were about to pursue me, and the morale of the troops was even more dispirited. Wang Hu felt an ominous premonition in his heart. He led the large army and continued to flee all the way to Zhongmu. When they were crossing the river at the ferry, they were unexpectedly rushed to by Kui Sheng with his troops. Kui Sheng led his troops to kill all sides. Wang Hu's army was defeated. More than 10,000 people were killed or injured. At this time, Shang Rang was aware of the practical situation and saw that the situation was over, so he immediately led his men to surrender to Shi Pu. Don't forget that Li Chen and others also followed Shang Rang's example and joined their former teammate Wu Quanzhong. Wu Quanzhong was originally like them, but later he surrendered to Emperor Shuo, and he was in a high position and took charge of military affairs. Wang Hu saw the two generals leading his men to abandon him and looked up to the sky with a sigh. The left and right hands are gone. In the end, he had no choice but to lead the remaining defeated generals and flee towards Fengkaiu. I don't know if it's the last lament, but it's raining again. The horse refused to move forward in the heavy rain. Finally, two armies, Mukong and Kui Sheng, came after them. Wang Hu broke through and escaped. When he finally fled to Yanzhou, there were less than 1,000 people left with Wang Hu. In the end, Wang Hu led the thousands of people in a desperate battle with Kui Sheng and Mukong who were pursuing them. Until the last moment, Wang Hu did not give in. After all, someone who has sat on the throne and ascended the throne, how can he give in? But Wang Hu's nephew Lin Yan gave in. Seeing that the situation was over, Lin Yan took Wang Hu unprepared and killed Wang Hu, his wives, concubines, and brothers. Wang Hu, a tycoon of a generation, from a family of salt dealers, who had failed to win for a long time, fought with Shuo Jun to the last moment without giving up. He never expected that he would die in the hands of his close relatives. A heavy rain poured down, it was Wang Hu's unwilling blood and tears. The Shuo dynasty was still lingering on, and Emperor Shuo was still sitting high on the throne, but he, Wang Hu, never had the chance to unseat him. I will never die with my eyes in peace. Lin Yan held Wang Hu's head to ask for credit from Mukong, thinking that he was a meritorious person and would be given preferential treatment. Unexpectedly, he was killed by Mukong with a knife. I will never die with my eyes in peace. Turning around, Mukong took the heads of Lin Yan and Wang Hu back to Chang'an to receive the reward from Emperor Shuo. But Kui Sheng learned the lesson this time and led a large army back to Chang'an. This time he didn't want to endure it anymore. It doesn't make sense, it's all Feng Xiangjun who endures hardships, but he doesn't get the rewards in the end. A capable force was left and handed over to Lu Bachan, asking him to lead the troops to continue chasing Wang Hu's disciples. Wang Hu is dead, but his disciple Wang Hao and his remnants are still wandering around. Kui Sheng estimated that Emperor Shuo didn't want to see Lu Bachan, and of course he couldn't remember such a person. But there is no guarantee that no one will mention such a thing in front of Emperor Shuo. What if it brings back Shuo Huang's bad memories of Ma Mingwen? I'm afraid that not only Lu Bachan, but also him will not be able to do well. So Lu Bachan had no choice but to lead his troops to pursue Wang Hao one after another. Xiangzi, in the vast mountains. The sound of tinkling echoed through the forest. A field army, with a team of 20 or 30 people, was chewing wild animals hunted from the forest until their mouths were full of oil, while they were staring at the workers in the mine. These hundreds of people dig only a few dozen cartloads of iron ore a day. I'm afraid they are just trying to be lazy. If you don't give me some color, I'm afraid I won't know how to write the word death. A long whip shot through the air and made a loud crack. My men, please move quickly and slowly. Isn't it because I haven't given you a meal? I've delayed the general's business. Cutting them off one by one is not enough to satisfy my hatred. A man with a thin face and ragged clothes in the pit raised his eyes and glanced at the man with hatred. When his eyes glanced over, he immediately lowered his eyelids. Sudahu lowered his eyes, feeling secretly resentful. Don't be impulsive. He still has to find a young prostitute, and he has to live. He must get out of here alive, and he will definitely find Xing Yu. I don't know if she is alive or where she is. Every time he thought of Qing now living in some inhuman place and suffering hardship, Sudahu felt like thousands of ants were gnawing at her. A man next to him was almost hit by the tail of the whip, so Sudahu hurriedly gave him a hand. The man staggered 2 steps. Dahu, I'm afraid I won't survive. Uncle, keep holding on. We will definitely get out of this mountain alive. Uncle, I'm afraid I won't be able to get out alive. I still have time to chew my teeth. Is it because I have eaten too much or my work is too easy? An overseer swung his long whip towards the 2 of them. The 2 of them were unable to dodge, and the middle-aged man was struck in the face by the long whip. Blood was immediately visible, with a long blood mark. Shocking. The man covered his face and fell to the ground. The supervisor seemed to find it unsatisfactory, and whipped several times at the man prostrate on the ground. The man rolled and crawled, but he was still beaten to pieces. Blood stained the clothes. You. Sudahu went to help him while glaring at the supervisor angrily. When the supervisor saw Sudahu, he still dared to glare at him. He was trampled under his feet. A man like an ant still dared to glare at him. He immediately whipped his whip towards Sudahu. Sudahu turned sideways and took 2 steps forward, but was still hit in the back. With a snap, the clothes on the back split, and a long whip mark immediately appeared on the back, with blood on it. Hiss. Sudahu gritted his teeth tightly, and the pain still shot straight to his forehead. Seeing that the second whip was about to be swung at him, Sudahu simply turned around, faced the whip, turned his head to the side, and caught the tail of the whip. Untouchable, how dare you take his whip? The man pulled hard and didn't move at all. How could a fat man with a big head and ears beat Sudahu's strength accumulated from digging for iron in the past few months? Sudahu exerted all his strength and used the long whip to pull him over. The supervisor was so angry that he threw his whip and punched Sudahu. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 268. Sudahu was completely angered, threw his whip and punched him. Then he used his feet to pick him up. Seeing that he was staggering, he rushed forward and immediately pushed him to the ground. He swung it towards his face with all his might. They are all the same common people of Shuo dynasty, why should they be treated like ants by you? And shouted around. One punch. Why did they capture us to dig for iron and separate our families? Another punch. Why should we work from dawn to dusk? They only gave me 2 black steamed buns in one meal. You guys eat a lot of food and fish every day. Punch after punch. The people sitting in the cell were soon alerted. Rebel. Seeking death. I saw a group of supervisors surrounding Sudahua with fierce faces. The man who was beaten to a bloody pulp climbed up from the ground with difficulty. Climbing up a big rock, he shouted towards the construction site, "Since they won't let us live, we will die after all, so we might as well fight with them. With hundreds of us, can't we beat 20 or 30 of them? Fight them! Fight them!" The miners, who had been oppressed for a long time, finally knew how to resist. They immediately fought with more than 20 supervisors. Sudahua punched the man one after another, beating him until he was no longer human, and finally pulled out the dagger from his waist and killed him. The construction site was in complete chaos. A group of unarmed miners fought to the death with 24 armed overseers, and soon gained the upper hand. Sudahua felt that this was the best time to escape. "I'm afraid the general or something will get the news soon and bring a large force over, and he won't be able to escape." They hurriedly helped the man who was beaten to a bloody pulp, picked him up, and the two of them ran away into the woods. More and more miners fled after him. On the other side, Sukingyu, Ma Xian, and others have discovered that the mountain is indeed an iron mine. And the reserves are abundant. I also heard from old Jengtu that after climbing several mountains past this mountain, there was another mountain over there with iron ore, and it seemed like someone was mining over there. Old Jengtu and his son were hunting in this area of the mountains. Occasionally they saw carts coming and going, and they often heard the sound of clanging and clanging. Sukingyu and Ma Xian looked at each other and decided to go over the mountain to have a look. "Come all come. Know yourself and know the enemy. Otherwise, if you come to mine in the future, you will be killed by the people next to you, and you will die without knowing how." The group then decided to turn over and check it out. On the other side, Lu Bachan also pursued Wang Hao's men all the way to western Hunan. Wang Hu is dead, and Wang Hao will certainly not be able to do anything. But if Wang Hao doesn't die, what if he comes back from the ashes? So I had to push him into the mud. Let him never get up again. In this way, maybe he can return to his wife and Xiaobao. Lu Bachan was full of energy, thinking that the battle would be over soon and he would return to his wife and son. He led his team and chased desperately. Wang Hao was also cunning and ran away all the way to the mountains. Lu Bachan was so angry that he gritted his teeth. "He can enter, but we can't? The horses can't come in, they're tied up outside." He led the team into the mountain on foot. As for the iron mine, the mine owner immediately got the news that the miners below were rioting. "That's okay." A large force came immediately. In the woods, the middle-aged man had reached the end of his strength. "Dahua, I can't run anymore, don't worry about me, just run by yourself, don't drag you down." "Uncle, I will carry you." "No need, I can't become, Dahua, listen to me." The man looked like he was giving his last words. Sudahua suppressed his grief and held the man in his arms. "Uncle, tell me, I'm listening. I told you before, my family, if you escape one day, help Uncle go back and see them, take a look at them for Uncle. Uncle wants to see them, I miss them." Sudahua held back tears and nodded. "Well, when I get away, I will go back to see them for you." "Thank you, Dahua. Run away, leave this man-eating place, run away." As soon as the man finished speaking, his hand dropped to the ground. "I went there with longing for my relatives in my hometown. I will never die with my eyes in peace. Uncle." A group of people came running from behind and heard another sound of pursuit. Sudahua wiped away his tears and put him next to a big tree. "Uncle, I can't restrain myself for you." Sudahua's face was full of tears. He gave him one last sad look, turned around and ran towards the forest. "What's going on here?" Sukingyu and others saw a group of people running towards her from a distance. Stunned, Si Yuan hurriedly climbed up a big tree and looked over there. It seems like someone is chasing them. Ma Xian also stood on a high place and looked over there. Seeing faint shouts and shouts coming from the other side, he glared, "No." "What?" Su Qingyu was a little stunned. How could it be so good? After climbing several mountains, not a soul could be seen. The forest was so quiet that only the chirping of birds and insects could be heard, so suddenly a bunch of people came out. Where did it come from? I'm afraid the miners are rioting and having disputes with the mine owners. Let's get out of here. As Ma Xian said this, he pulled Su Qingyu over and turned around and ran away on the road. Su Qingyu followed him in a daze. There was no time to think. After running a short distance, I heard screams from behind. Let's go. It's too late. Ma Xian was so anxious that they just came to explore the road. How could they encounter such a thing? I'm afraid it will affect them. After running for some distance, I saw a hot pursuit behind me. The backward Zhengbo and his father, Lao Zhengtu, were already treated as minors and whipped. Ma Xian's men had no choice but to turn around and fight. The two sides immediately fought together. Su Qingnao was led by Si Yuan and hid in a pit. She was so frightened. How could this be a good thing, just to explore the road, and then meet others and fight with each other? And it's so indiscriminate that it affects even the fish in the pond? It's better to see it clearly before taking action. There were 11 people in Su Qingyu's group. Ma Xian and his 5 men, plus Si Yuan, were all very skilled. She and old Zhengtu and his son had no skills at all. Before, she thought there were too many people. After this battle, the manpower is a bit insufficient. Su Qingyu was extremely anxious. Seeing Ma Xian, Si Yuan, and others being surrounded by people, they were so anxious that they were sweating. Seeing someone swinging a whip in her direction, Su Qingyu was so frightened that she turned away. The whip was swung at the edge of the pit, raising a burst of dead branches and leaves, which almost blinded Su Qingyu's eyes. She was still squinting when someone lifted her out of the pit with a strong force. Before she could stand firm, the person pushed her against a tree. Su Qingyu immediately hit her head on the tree. The pain made her grit her teeth. Eyes shining with gold. Seeing that she was trapped, Si Yuan immediately turned around and fought with her opponent. Su Qingnao endured the pain, her vision went black, and she reluctantly stood up while holding onto the tree. Hey, one person seems familiar? He shouted over there, Lu Bachan. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha 11U. Chapter 269. Lu Bachan chased Wang Hao all the way to the depths of the dense forest. 69shux. Com. Fought with the remnants of his army. Seeing that the enemy was already at the end of his strength, he was just about to wipe him out in one go. Unexpectedly, a large group of people appeared from nowhere, and they were so numerous that they immediately disrupted Wang Hao's men. Seeing that Wang Hao was about to escape among his subordinates' guards, Lu Bachan was so anxious that he immediately chased after them. But after chasing for a few steps, he saw a group of fierce and ferocious strong men holding knives and whips, chasing the ragged people in front, shouting and killing. They chopped down anyone they saw, just like chopping melons and vegetables. Lu Bachan was so angry. They were pale and naked. Did they dig up your wall foundation? Or did they dig up your ancestral grave? As for that, just chopping anyone you see? They were all unarmed civilians. Lu Bachan couldn't stand it anymore, so he turned around and stopped the group of people. The other party was chasing a group of low-class people, but was suddenly stopped by Lu Bachan and his men. Where did this idiot come from, a fool? Dare to block my way? He immediately swung his knife and chopped. The two sides immediately started fighting. In the midst of the fierce battle, Lu Bachan vaguely heard someone calling him, Lu Bachan. He glanced over and didn't recognize him. He didn't care about him. He didn't slow down his movements at all, and fought with the group of evil people. On the other side, Suchingan's eyes were full of stars, and she was kicked hard by someone, and her head hit the tree heavily, and she felt dizzy. Seeing that Ziyuan and Ziyuan were gradually losing their strength, they were obviously at a disadvantage. He was so anxious that he was scratching his heart and liver. "Lu Bachan," he shouted hoarsely. "Hey, it's a woman's voice." Lu Bachan finally heard it clearly now. "Woman. Know him? In this place? Deep in the mountains and old forests?" Lu Bachan quickly dealt with several men around him and strode towards the sound. From a distance, he saw a woman holding a big tree, swaying. She looks familiar. He hurried over. He was puzzled. Why does she look so much like my wife? But she is prettier and whiter than my wife. Lu Bachan. Su Qingmei felt that she was about to faint. There was a blood flower in front of her eyes, and the air was filled with a strong smell of blood. It was disgusting. I felt dizzy and wanted to vomit. I must have had a concussion. My wife. Lu Bachan's eyes almost fell out of his sockets. My wife, damn it, it's really my wife? My wife. It's me. Su Qingmei fainted after answering. My wife, her heart was broken. If anything happens to my wife, I will chop you all down. Su Qingmei was still dizzy when she woke up. She felt dizzy when she moved her head a little. Madam, Lu Bachan was happy and nervous when he saw her wake up. Lu Bachan. Hey, it's me. Madam, it's me. Lu Bachan cried with joy and held her hand tightly. Su Qingmei felt dizzy, her eyes narrowed, and she moved her hands, feeling as if she was lying on the bed. Where is this? In. Madam, are you feeling better? Are you dizzy? If you are, just lie down. Do you want to go to the toilet? Or do you want to drink water? Su Qingmei wanted to shake her head, but when she shook it, golden light flew. She must have had a concussion. I want to vomit. Want to vomit? Then. Lu Bachan looked around but didn't see any container to hold anything. An idea came to him, and he held his hands and went to Su Qing'an. My wife, please vomit. Su Qing'an squinted her eyes and turned sideways, vomiting for a long time, but she couldn't vomit. She knew this was the sequelae of being thrown. She felt annoyed. When she opened her eyes again, she saw Lu Bachan holding his hands to her mouth, and she slapped his hands away angrily. Can't you find something? I looked for it, but I couldn't find it. Su Qing'an lay back on the pillow, closed her eyes and ignored him. Lu Bachan scratched his head. Standing by the bed, he was a little at a loss, looking left and right. He didn't see any utensils, but there was a kettle on the table. But my wife would drink water later. He turned around and saw that Su Qing'an didn't seem to want to vomit. No matter. He happily sat on the edge of the bed, grabbed Su Qing'an's hand, and stared at her face. He had been looking for a day, but he still couldn't see enough. My wife, why have you changed? What have you changed? You've become prettier. You've become whiter. You're fatter than before. Su Qing'an thought of the plump, white, and blessed girl he wanted to find before, and suddenly didn't want to pay attention to him. It's been more than 3 years, and I think about my wife every day and every night. My heart aches when I think about her. I didn't expect that my wife would be right under my nose at this moment. It's great. Su Qing'an heard him mumbling to himself, opened his eyes and looked at him carefully. Seeing that he was really smiling like a fool. And he had a scruffy beard. Looking disgusted, what's good? My wife is in front of me, it's great. I used to dream every night, hoping that my dream would come true. When I opened my eyes, my wife would be lying in my bed. Don't want to talk. What a dream. My dear, are you still dizzy? Do you want to find a doctor for you? No need. I'll be fine after lying down. Okay, then lie down. I'll stay here with you. I'm not going anywhere. He held Sukingyu's hand tightly and saw that her lips were a little dry, so he stood up. Madam, let me get you some water to drink. After pouring a cup, he quickly turned around and came back, carefully lifted Sukingyu up and fed her a cup. After feeding, seeing that her lips were moist, Lu Bachan licked his tongue without looking at it. Ask her, do you want more? No more. Putting the water glass aside, he stared at Sukingyu again, with the corners of his mouth raised. In the past, I always heard people say dirty things in the military camp, saying that after staying in the military camp for a long time, the sows looked like fairies when they saw them. Then now the lady is the fairy of fairies. The most beautiful, no one can match it. Why are you looking at me like that? Nice. Silly. Where is Uncle Xian and others? Where is Si Yuan? Dealing with that mine in the mountains. What happened? Lu Bachan told her the story. Escaped. Are you waiting to be caught if you don't run away? Originally, they mined in secret. The court strictly controls iron ore. Mining in private is a serious crime of beheading. She knows. Isn't this meant to be done quietly? If Lu Bachan found out, how could he suppress the report? Then the mountain they went to was also going to be discovered? Countless thoughts flashed through Sukingyu's mind. I glanced at Lu Bachan and saw that he was looking at me intently, with attachment in his eyes. He asked tentatively, do you know Ma Xian? Lu Bachan nodded, I've heard of it before, but never seen it. He was in the military camp at that time and was not with the master in Fenting town. Have you talked to him? Yeah, nod. No, what? Countless thoughts flashed through Sukingyu's mind. Kui Sheng, whom Lu Bachan followed, was a royalist. In their eyes, Ma Mingwen was no different from a traitor. They are two opposites. I'm afraid the interests won't come together. Lu Bachan looked at Sukingyu, and countless thoughts were rolling in his heart. Unexpectedly, the weak lady actually recognized the master as her godfather and took over the 28 villages that had come to seek refuge with the master. When did you become so strong? I thought she was working hard to raise her son. Moreover, she also grew grain in the mountains and sold mountain products and tea. The master got the money, exchanged it for horses, and now he is taking the master's companion since childhood to the mountains to explore for iron ore and dig mines. Madam, you are taking a step too far. My husband was shocked. My husband has a headache. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 270. Lu Bachan was muttering in his heart. Wife, you seem to be running a little too fast. I am just a small soldier. The highest position I held before was only a 4th-rank military official. You are so good, you are so arrogant after this. How can I help you? Lu Bachan had a headache, it hurts a lot. Wife took big steps and ran a little too fast. He could hardly catch up. Is this something that a small soldier like him can handle? Sukingmei saw that Lu Bachan's face kept changing, and she endured the dizziness and slapped him hard. Lu Bachan was slapped back to his senses. Wife. I asked you what you know, but you didn't answer for a long time. You know everything you should know, Lu Bachan replied in a low voice. So angry. What should you know? Sukingmei endured her anger and asked again. That's right, you and Uncle Xian came to the Great Mountains. Uncle Xian told you. Yes. Then can you pretend not to see it? Suqing'an tried to ask. My wife? Lu Bachan also wanted to imitate Suqing'an and roll his eyes at her. But he didn't dare. I can pretend not to see it, but can I pretend not to see hundreds of laborers and more than 100 soldiers following my husband? Can I poke their eyes out one by one? You don't have that ability. Even if you have the ability, you can't do it. The two of them looked at each other. Suqing closed her eyes and thought to herself, what is all this hard work for? To make wedding clothes for others. So angry. Uncle Xian only told me about the mountain you found, Suqing heard Lu Baqin say slowly. Suqing was happy, you didn't tell others. Is my husband that kind of person? So angry. My wife doesn't trust him. Suqing gave him a very charming smile. Lu Baqin felt his bones were about to break. Then he heard his wife say, you'd better not be that kind of person. Otherwise, just pretend you never gave birth to a son. Lu Baqin said, I've already given birth, can I still put it back? It can't be put back, but I can make you unable to find it. Don't be angry with the patient lying on the bed. It makes me look rude. Lu Baqin glared at Suqing fiercely. He didn't dare to use too much force, fearing that his wife would really do it. Wife, I miss Xiaobao. I haven't even seen him soften up. Suqing looked at him, can you go back with us? By the way, I'll show you a few times. Lu Baqin was happy, but it was only a breath, and then he was discouraged again. Wang Hao ran away, and I still have to chase him. And I didn't ask for leave from Shang Feng. Suqing rolled her eyes, then you should continue to dream. Dreaming is not good at all, and it can't come true. Will Xiaobao not recognize me in the future? Lu Baqin was very melancholy. When will it end? He wanted to go home, to hug his wife and son. He couldn't hug his son, but he could still hug his wife. Wife, I miss you so much. Lu Baqin leaned over. The two of them hadn't left the room for 3 days in the inn. The food was delivered to the door. Will you be relieved if you don't keep an eye on her? Suqing was disgusted with him. She stuck to her every day. Lu Baqin leaned against the head of the bed, his hands behind his head, and a beautiful arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. I'm a soldier, and I can't rest for a few days after seeing my wife? Even dogs are given a few days off. Then Wang Hao won't chase her. Catch her. Can he sleep if he doesn't chase the one above? How can he not sleep? I heard that he has a banquet every day. It's not like there's no news about Suqing. Lu Baqin's head hurts again when he hears this. When will it end? The one above doesn't seem to be doing anything either. It's really worrying. You are a soldier, without any official position. Marshal Kui can let you lead the troops. And let more than 100 people follow you. Lu Baqin was quite complacent when he heard it. What do you think? My husband is also very capable in the camp. Those are my husband's former subordinates, who followed voluntarily. Yes, you are very capable. You lead the soldiers' rations and worry about the general's heart. Lu Baqin glared at her when he heard it. My wife, can you not hit me? I can hit you even more, but I endured it. The two hadn't seen each other for more than 3 years, leaning on the head of the bed and talking. Suqing also sympathized with him and answered whatever he asked. Have you sent a letter to Fengting Town? Did Dad reply? How are they? Lu Baqin shook his head. I didn't receive Dad's letter. I don't know if they received my letter. Seeing Lu Baqin's worry, he comforted her. Don't worry, the sister-in-law that my second brother married is from the Sun family in Pingchuan County. She is well known in the local area and should be able to protect Dad and them. That's all I can think of. Lu Baqin nodded, yes. He has a son and daughter, and Wu is by his side. I have nothing to worry about. Turning to Suqing, I just miss you and Xiaobao. Every time I think about the danger you and your son will encounter, I can't sit still, can't eat, and can't sleep well. I'm fine. Xiaobao is also good. He is very well behaved. He is usually very sensible and rarely cries. If he is unhappy, he will be sulky and ignore people. He will be fine if he is coaxed. My son, how can he not be sensible? He knows that his mother is working hard, so he doesn't cry. My son. Like me. Tisk. I'm too lazy to refute you. It's great that your parents-in-law are with you. This makes me feel relieved. I was originally worried that you would be bullied by the people in the mountains. I was afraid that they would be xenophobic. It's okay. Everything is fine. After a while, Lubachin happily touched Sukinyu's belly. Madam, tell me, is there a little baby in here? It would be great if it is a daughter this time. Lubachin was happily dreaming. Imagine a soft and sweet daughter with pigtails, calling daddy, and rushing towards him. He knelt down and opened his arms towards his daughter. Won't. In an instant, he was afraid that his wife would crush his sweet dream. Why not? I haven't worked hard enough these past 2 days. Sukinjeo rolled her eyes, not these days. Why not these days? Lubachin chased after him. You're a scumbag too lazy to pay attention to him. Why am I such a scumbag? We don't discuss book knowledge now. Hey, is this kind of thing also taught in books? Madam. The lady ignored him. No explanation either. Angry. In a blink of an eye, he saw that his wife was not coaxing him either. Forget it, I'm still not angry anymore. Finally met my wife. Being angry is a waste of time. He happily pestered Sukinyu to talk again, asking Xiaobao this and that. On the other side, Ma Xian took his men and Siyuan to inspect the iron ore mining situation. He restrained himself from the dead miners and also asked some miners. Most of the things are understood. The miners don't know who the mine owner is. All I know is that he seems to be someone from the military. The configuration is similar to that found in the military. Ma Xian wrote it down. I plan to investigate secretly. I don't know whether it was the Qi army or the Shuo army. If it were Qi Jun, things would be easy to handle. With Wang Hu's death, the trees would fall and the Hozans would scatter. No matter how difficult it is, it would depend on who can do it faster. He, Ma Xian, was not afraid of the other party either. But if it was Shuo Jun, I'm afraid it won't be easy to handle. It doesn't matter that this mine can't continue to be dug, even the one they found can't be moved for the time being. Otherwise, you might have to make wedding clothes for others. The group of people figured out the cause of the incident and returned to the inn. The miners died and fled, leaving some homeless, so Ma Xian took them back. Sukinyu still needs people in the mountains, and these dozens of people can handle it. Sudahu heard that Ma Xian was going back to Renzo, so he also stayed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhyaoye 11U. Chapter 271. On the 4th day, Lubachin had to leave. Read. He had military orders and could not tolerate his neglect. He and Ma Xian closed the door and talked for a long time before they came out. Say goodbye to Sukinyu. Madam. Sukinyu almost suffocated when he hugged her. But bear with it. Pat him. Madam, I will miss you. I miss my son. I will be back with you and my son soon. Madam, will you miss me? Meeting. You just talk. If not, kiss me. I bite you, believe it or not. Then my dear wife. Sukinyu was so kissed that she almost couldn't breathe. I started to beat him, but the guy let me go. My mouth is swollen. It's okay, I don't mind it. You still dare to dislike it? No, no, I don't dare. My wife is the prettiest, gentlest, and most lovely in the world. How dare I despise her? It's not like she was stuffed to support her. That's pretty much it. When Lu Bachan left, Sukingyu saw him out of the inn. Seeing him getting on his horse, I suddenly felt some sadness about farewell. Look at him steadily. Madam, come back. I'll be back soon. Just wait for me. After saying that, he saw Sukingyu waving to him with a smile, and then hurriedly clapped his horse and left. After walking a few steps, I looked back on the horse again. Seeing the lady still standing there, my heart suddenly felt sweet, sour, and astringent. I can't tell what it feels like. Another wave of melancholy arose. His wife seemed to be walking too fast. Could he still stay where he was and do nothing? How can he, a soldier, protect his wife? If she hadn't met him this time, would the lady have escaped unscathed? The clatter of horse hooves rang directly into his ears, and he was confused and unable to think. When he turned around again, the lady was no longer visible. Sukingyu stared blankly at Lu Bachan's back as he galloped away from his horse. He was much taller on the horse. After more than 3 years, he has matured. He is no longer a young man who has not yet reached his 20s, competing with his brothers for his presence in front of his father. The eyes are much more determined. Sukingyu stared blankly at the ashes raised by the horse's hooves in front of her. Only when people could no longer be seen and the sound of horse hooves could no longer be heard did he turn around. At the door of the inn, Sudahu had been staring at her since the two of them came out. He thought he had seen it wrong and followed him out of the inn. He had been looking for her for more than half a year, and now she was in front of him. She was still alive and looked the same as before, without any signs of suffering. That's good, that's good. Sudahu was extremely happy. Seeing her saying goodbye to a man again, Sudahu stared blankly and heard her calling his name. Was it Lu Bachan? Is he still alive? Then Xiaobao is not a child without a father? Qing now is no longer a widow. Although he didn't care what she became, he didn't want her to be unhappy. Seeing their eyes facing each other, you are attracted to me. Sudahu couldn't tell what he was feeling in his heart. Did it turn out that Qing Lao and that Ma Xian were together? Then he won't go to Renzhou. He found her. He won't go to Renzhou anymore. Sudahu turned around lonely. Sukingyu felt that someone was watching her from the beginning. Her instincts were unmistakable. But when she turned around, she was gone. Did she see it wrong? Sudahu left the inn step by step with heavy steps. King Lao, live a good life, bring up Xiaobao, and live happily. Just consider me dead. He didn't want her to see him like this. Sudahu endured the reluctance in his heart and walked farther and farther away from the inn. Suddenly someone grabbed my arm. Turning around, he saw Qing now staring at him with tears in his eyes. Sudahu suddenly felt as if his throat was blocked by something. He stared at her blankly, speechless. Why don't you recognize me when you see me, and why do you still want to leave? Sukingyu couldn't understand that he had been protecting her and looking for her in the past. He had been alone in Renzhou for so long, just waiting for news about her. When I saw her this time, I quietly left alone. Qing Lao. Sudahu burst into tears. The two sat down at the inn. Sudahu had freshened up. Wearing Si Yuan's clothes and taking off his rags, one can see his appearance. But he was still skinny, with wounds on his face and hands. Seeing Sukingyu staring at his injury, he even comforted her. Don't be sad. Look, didn't I survive a catastrophe? Old people say that if you survive a catastrophe, you will have good luck later. My good fortune is still to come. Sukingyu nodded. Then he asked him why he hid when he saw her. Sudahu didn't say anything. Sukingyu didn't ask any more questions. The two talked about various things after they said goodbye. It's great that your family is reunited. Brother Qingsong is also alive, married and has a son. Are your parents very happy? Su Qingyu nodded, yes. They are very happy. They just miss you who have no news. Su Dehu's eyes were a little dry. Blinking his eyes, he said, when I was little, I had no food to eat. The East family would ask for a little bit, and the West family would ask for a little bit. Your parents often left me a lot of food. Su Qingyu felt sad too. Choking with sobs, they talk about you every day. They treat you like a son. Su Dehu's eyes were red. I know, I know. Uncle and aunt, they are good to me. Brother Dehu, come back with me. They miss you. There is peace in the mountains. Let's live a stable life together. Okay. Su Dehu looked at her intently and saw her staring at him, as if he was about to burst into tears if he didn't agree. Smiling and nodding, okay. Su Qingyu felt relieved, and a tight string in her heart loosened. She lowered her eyes and nodded. I feel much more relaxed. On the way back, there were more than 30 homeless miners. They were all brothers of life and death who had worked together with Su Dehu for more than half a year. Su Qingyu promised them that he would give them a home in the mountains. They come and go freely. No one can drive them away if they want to. These miners, who were already on the verge of death, heard that they could have a home in the mountains, where they could have land to grow, food to eat, someone to protect them, and no one to drive them away. Not only was there food to eat in the mountains, but there was also no shortage of meat to eat, and they were still full. They all cried with joy. Follow Su Qingyu firmly. Su Dehu said that this was his sister. They all had the surname Su, so they also believed that it was Su Dehu's sister. The group bought some food from the inn and went into the mountain again. After climbing over the mountain, there is no shortage of food and it is still safe. When he was about to get home, Su Dehu said he wanted to go to a worker's house to see his family for him. Ma Xian left 3 people with her, and together with Si Yuan, the 7 of them turned around and went to a village below Renzhou city. Along the way, Su Qingyu heard Su Dehu talk about this family. The 2 sons in the family died on the battlefield, leaving only him, his wife and a daughter in the family. Now that he is gone, the backbone of the family has fallen. Su Qingyu felt quite uncomfortable. With heavy hearts, the group arrived at the entrance of the village. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhao 11U. Chapter 272. Renzhou was relatively stable under Painian's rule, but it no longer had the atmosphere of the past with chickens crowing and dogs barking. The group entered the village and walked along the way, quietly, as if no one had ever lived there. The weeds and bushes at the entrance of the village were overgrown, covering the village road. It was obvious that no one had cleaned it for a long time. The group of 7 people entered the village, which was also quite large. Occasionally, they saw someone, but before Su Qingyu and others could ask, they disappeared in a flash. Several people looked at each other. They were all a little embarrassed. It was lunchtime, and looking around, there was no smoke from cooking over the village. Are they all going to escape? One of Ma Xian's men said. All the way from north to south, Ma Mingguan's men saw many villages and towns without people. It shouldn't be. Lord Pei's rule is more peaceful than other places, and our land is not drought-free or flood-prone, and the harvest is still good. Where can they run away? Si Yuan and Si Yuan have been in and out of Renzhou city the most, so they know it well. Replied. Su Qingyu thought for a moment and said, they must have been frightened by seeing so many strangers entering the village. Then she said a few words to Si Yuan. Si Yuan immediately straightened his back, took a breath, and shouted loudly, we are not bad people. We have news about Liang Fang and brought it to his family. His voice was loud. After Si Yuan finished shouting, everyone listened attentively. They heard some movement around them. There was the sound of a door opening, and someone secretly poked his head out and looked towards them. After a while, a middle-aged woman hurried over, followed closely by a young woman. The woman ran to Suqing'an and others and stopped more than 10 steps away. Panting, "Do you have news about my Liang Fang?" After that, she looked at Suqing'an and others. Seeing her shrinking eyes, Su Qingmei took 2 steps forward and comforted her, "Aunt, don't be afraid. We are not bad people. Are you Liang Fang's wife?" Perhaps because she saw that Su Qingmei was a woman, the woman relaxed a lot and nodded, "Liang Fang is my man." Su Qingmei nodded and turned to look at Sudahua. Sudahua walked up to the woman, stammered several times, and then said, "Aunt, uncle, he is gone." The woman was stunned, staggered back 2 steps, and was held tightly by her daughter behind her. What did you say?" "Uncle, he is gone." Sudahua choked and said it again, and then told the story again. "Dad," the young woman was already crying with her mouth covered. The woman's eyes were dull, and after a long while, she collapsed on the ground and cried loudly. Su Qingmei couldn't bear this scene, turned her back, looked up, and blinked again and again. "His father, how can I live?" The voice was shrill. Sudahua stepped forward to comfort her. But it was no use. The woman slapped the ground and cried bitterly. She cried for her husband, her 2 sons who died in the battle, and this world of cannibalism. After a while, some familiar villagers came forward to comfort her, and the woman and the young woman stopped crying. Sudahua helped them back. Suqing'an did not follow them, but took the group to look around the village. Looking around, the village was full of fertile fields. Various vegetables were planted sparsely in the fertile fields, and some grains were planted sparsely in the corners. Most places were overgrown with weeds. Suqing'an and others were full of emotion. "It's a pity not to grow grain on such good land." Siyuan looked at everyone in the mountains, and they all opened mountain terraces along the slopes. "Now such good land is barren. It's a pity. What a pity, if you plant, you will get the money back." Everyone sighed. They cursed this world of cannibalism. Suqing'an walked back and forth on the stalks of the field. She sighed in her heart. "It shouldn't be like this. Lord Pei is not the kind of person who collects all kinds of exorbitant taxes. Why are people still afraid to plant the fields? Do they not know that the governor of Renzhou City has been changed, or that the officials at all levels under the governor are still pretending to obey but secretly disobeying? Such a good land. It's a pity to leave it alone." In the afternoon, everyone finally waited for Sudahua to come out of Liang's house. He was followed by Liang Fang's wife and daughter. "Is this a farewell? There is no need to bring a lot of bags, right? Qing'an." Sudahua looked at Suqing'an, moved his mouth, and didn't know how to speak. The young woman looked up at Suqing'an, and then lowered her head. "What's wrong?" Suqing'an asked him. And this, sister, they want to live with us in the mountains." Everyone looked at each other. My family is in the village, my relatives are buried here, why do you want to live in the mountains with strangers?" The woman saw that Suqing'an didn't say anything, so she immediately sat on the ground and started crying again. She cried about her miserable life. Her parents died in her early years, her son died in her middle age, and her husband died when she was old. Her daughter tried to pull her, but failed. The villagers who followed her also tried to persuade her, but failed. The young woman looked at Sudahua, then at Suqing'an, lowered her eyes, and whispered, "My father entrusted us to Brother Su, we, mother and daughter, have nowhere to go." Suqing'an looked at Sudahua. "How did this message come about?" "I just came to see my wife and children on behalf of a worker. How did it become an entrustment? This has become a responsibility? Are you sure?" Sudahua was torn between heaven and man. He came to see them on behalf of Uncle Liang. Uncle Liang was thinking about his wife and daughter at home, and he couldn't let them go at the last moment of his death. He came to see them on his behalf. He said he was leaving, but to his surprise, his aunt caught up with him and asked her daughter to pack her bags and follow him. Sudahu scratched his head. Sukingyu looked at him. It was a decision she couldn't make for him. If he didn't want to, she would ask Si Yuan and the others to drag him away. The young woman looked at Sudahu again and cried, "Brother Su, my two brothers are gone, and now my father is gone too. We sold all the land earlier to find our father. I can't live anymore. God is going to kill our mother and daughter. Liang Fang, you are happy. It's all over. Throw your daughter to me. How can I feed her? I don't even have enough to eat. Whoever marries her in the future, our mother and daughter, but how can I live? I might as well go with you." He slapped the ground and cried incessantly. Sukingyu frowned. "This woman. I am afraid that I will stick to Sudahu." Sudahu looked at Sukingyu. "Kingyu, if not, I won't go into the mountains, so I'll just stay in the village. Is it stupid? Stay in the village to take care of them. No relatives or reasons. How will you find a wife in the future?" Sukingyu had a headache. She couldn't let Sudahu stay. Her parents would probably talk about her. "Take it with you," Sukingyu said helplessly. After saying that, he turned around and left. When the woman heard this, she quickly got up from the ground and held Sudahu's arm tightly, for fear that he would throw them away. Her daughter glanced at Sudahu sheepishly. "Brother Su, thank you. It's okay. Qing Lao said there is no shortage of food in the mountains. You can survive if you are more diligent." The woman nodded and said yes. There were villagers watching them go away silently from behind. Sukingyu was walking in front, but she kept muttering in her heart,